My name is Mara Locke, and I've spent 30 years tracking money trails that people didn't want found. Numbers don't lie, but families often do. That night, I walked into my son's kitchen carrying grocery bags, thinking I was helping. Instead, I heard my daughter-in-law's voice float through the air like perfume, just dump all 9 kids on her. She doesn't do anything anyway. I froze in the hallway. Cole, my son, laughed softly. The kind of laugh men use when they agree but don't want to look cruel. My hand tightened around the receipt, $1,963.75, the catering I'd secretly prepaid to make Christmas easier for them. They didn't know I'd covered it. They didn't even ask who did. The laughter kept going, polite and practiced. She's already paid for the food. This, I said, the least she can do is watch the kids. My chest went cold. I'd come through the side door to be helpful. Invisible. Efficient. It turned out I was exactly that invisible. I didn't move. Didn't speak. I just turned around, stepped back into the dark, and left before anyone noticed. They thought I'd come to serve. They were wrong. I was done serving. The night air was sharp when I stepped outside, the kind that cuts through fabric and memory at once. My car sat under the porch light, thin dust clinging to the hood. I set the grocery bags in the passenger seat, still holding the receipt like proof that I'd once been needed. Me fingers trembled, not from anger but from recognition. I had built this family's comfort, one small yes at a time. And somewhere along the way, it had turned into obligation. My phone buzzed before I turned the ignition. Cole's name glowed on the screen. I watched it ring until the call faded. Then again. And again. When it finally stopped, the silence felt like a verdict. I imagined his tone half guilt, half expectation, asking where I was, assuming I'd be back in a few hours, ready to clean up their laughter. Instead, I drove. The road stretched empty, headlights carving through the dark. I didn't know exactly where I was going, but I knew I wasn't heading toward them. Somewhere between the first mile and the 10th, my heartbeat slowed, the noise in my head thinning out until only one thought remained. They'd built their celebration on my effort, my money, my time. But this year, I wasn't part of the menu. I wasn't coming back to serve the table. This Christmas, for the first time in my life, I would sit at my own. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with the receipt flat in front of me. The ink had smudged from where my hand had sweated through the drive home. I dialed the catering company, my voice steady, even as my pulse raced. I told them I needed to cancel the entire order. The woman on the line hesitated, her tone polite but cautious, then explained they could issue a partial refund, about $1,040. I thanked her, hung up, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. It wasn't about the money. It was about control, the kind I'd handed away so easily under the name of love. That refund felt like the first dollar I'd ever earned for myself. I poured a cup of coffee. No rush. No noisy. And realized how quiet freedom could sound. By afternoon, I was on the road again. This time heading west. Lucia Hart, an old friend from my forensic days, had once told me her ranch in New Mexico always had space for people who'd had enough. She didn't ask for explanations when I called. She just said, "Get here." They called what I did dramatic. I called it honest. A week later, I sat in Lucia's quiet study with my laptop open, the glow of the screen lighting the lines on my hands. Every number, every contract, every small signature I'd once overlooked sat waiting. 6 months earlier, I had lent Cole $75,000 as a bridge loan to expand his gym. Iron District. It was supposed to be a temporary fix secured against the gym's equipment and payable within 6 months. The due date had passed 3 weeks ago. I pulled up the documents. Each one signed and notarized in neat blue ink. I filed a UCC-1 lien. A simple form that turned words into leverage. It was procedural, legal, and entirely fair. By the time the acknowledgement email hit my inbox, my shoulders felt lighter. I wasn't destroying my son's business. I was reminding him it existed because someone believed in him, and that belief had limits. That evening, Cole called from a number I didn't recognize. His voice cracked between disbelief and anger. He said I'd blindsided him, that I was overreacting, that this wasn't how family handled things. I let him finish, the silence stretching long after his words died. Then I said the only thing that mattered. You never asked if I was tired. When the call ended, I looked out the window toward the New Mexico horizon. The light sinking over red dust and long fences. It struck me that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through paperwork, through boundaries drawn in ink. I had spent decades fixing other people's mistakes, quietly and without credit. Now, the quiet finally worked for me. 2 days later, Lucia left early to tend her horses, and I stayed inside, surrounded by files spread across the kitchen table. Old habits die hard. I logged into the shared business portal for Iron District, the one Cole had once asked me to review when he was too busy to deal with paperwork. The expense reports were sloppy, a mix of real invoices and obvious fabrications. Tessa's brand shoots, luxury spa trips, and childcare costs had all been categorized as marketing expenses. It wasn't just lazy accounting. It was deliberate. I leaned back, letting the numbers speak for themselves. Every transaction painted a pattern: money flowing from the gym's accounts into Tessa's lifestyle brand. She had built her image on authenticity while running a pipeline of personal spending through a small business. To the public, it was family first. On paper, it was tax fraud. I didn't need to embellish or accuse. The truth was enough. I gathered the supporting documents, attached my notes, and filed an anonymous submission to the IRS whistleblower office and the State Compliance Division. Years in forensic work had taught me precision details mattered. Emotion didn't. When I hit send, the screen went blank for a moment, reflecting only my face calm, composed, certain. Justice doesn't always arrive in sirens or headlines. Sometimes it walks quietly through the back door of a bureaucracy, carrying a file with your name on it. Their world ran on image. Mine ran on evidence. And evidence never blinks. By the end of that week, the world that Tessa had curated online started to look as hollow as her spreadsheets. Her feed showed snow-white kitchens, folded napkins, and captions about gratitude. I watched a new post go up, a smiling photo with the line, "Family first. Always." The irony was almost cinematic. I reached for the small recorder I'd carried that night at their house, the one that had captured her exact words, "Just dump all 9 kids on her." The audio was crisp, effortless, cruel. I trimmed the silence and attached it, along with a few screenshots of her business expenses, to an anonymous email addressed to brand compliance at 2 of her biggest sponsors. I didn't need to lie. I simply wrote, "Please review this against your code of conduct." Then I clicked send. The message left my outbox like a quiet bullet. 2 days later, her partnerships vanished from her profile. The affiliate links disappeared. A PR statement followed, all sterile language about alignment and values. Behind the polish, I could hear the panic. Kelsey, her younger sister and assistant, texted me a single line, "You're tearing down our family." I looked at the screen until the words blurred, then typed nothing back. Families built on image collapse, the moment truth enters the frame. A few days later, I went through a drawer at home that I hadn't opened in months. Inside lay an old iPad, the one Cole and Tessa had used years ago when their children visited me. It still synced to their shared account. I powered it on, expecting photos of birthdays or recipes. But what appeared instead were messages, thousands of them. I scrolled slowly, my pulse steady, until I saw the name Parker Voss. Parker was Cole's silent investor, a man Tessa often praised publicly for believing in small creators. The texts between them weren't about work. They were about hotel rooms, hidden vacants, and coded calendar entries that matched the gym's expense reports. Every detail was there: a dinner charge to the company card, a receipt for champagne, even a picture of Parker's shoes beneath a tablecloth. It didn't take a forensic accountant to see the truth. I stared at the screen until the words blurred into shapes. Betrayal had a pattern. It always left a paper trail. I printed the messages, attached the corresponding expenses, and filed them away. Not for revenge, but for evidence. Cole deserved to know what he had been protecting all this time. When I finally sent him the file, there was silence for nearly a day. Then came the call. His voice was low, cracked by disbelief. He accused me of destroying his marriage, of being cold, methodical. I listened until he ran out of words, then opened one more folder, the emails he'd signed, approving those same fake deductions to keep Tessa happy. The silence on the line was different then. It wasn't anger anymore. It was understanding, heavy and final. When truth cuts deep enough, there's no room left for denial, only consequence. The morning after that call, I met with my attorney in Santa Fe. She was calm, efficient, and entirely unshocked by my story. I handed her the documents, loan agreements, default notices, expense reports, and now, the proof of personal misuse. She read in silence, occasionally raising an eyebrow. When she finally looked up, she said, "We had two clear options, settlement or replevin. Both would end the same way. Cole would learn that family and business could no longer be blurred." The demand letter went out that afternoon. It stated plainly that Cole owed the full principal and interest, that Tessa's financial conduct had breached the terms, and that if payment wasn't made within 10 days, Iron District's equipment would be seized. It wasn't a threat. It was a timeline. Every sentence was factual, stripped of emotion, sharp as glass. By the end of the week, Parker Voss had been suspended from his firm pending investigation, and Tessa's name appeared in small online forums discussing misuse of brand funds. The perfect image was unraveling thread by thread. Cole tried to reach me again, first with anger, then with pleading. I didn't answer either. Some lessons need silence to land. That night, I poured myself a drink and stepped onto Lucia's porch. The desert was black and endless, a kind of truth I could finally stand inside. Power, I realized, doesn't come from revenge. It comes from refusing to be disposable ever again. I wasn't ending a family. I was ending a pattern. It was late afternoon when the knock came sharp, fast, and certain. Through the window, I saw Cole standing on the porch, his jaw set tight. Tessa a few steps behind him, arms folded like armor. Kelsey hovered near the steps, her face flushed from anger or embarrassment. It was hard to tell which. I opened the door but didn't invite them in. Some thresholds shouldn't be crossed twice. Cole spoke first, voice clipped and trembling. He said I had ruined everything. That people were talking. That Christmas had turned into a disaster. Tessa stepped forward, her tone polished but brittle, saying I'd humiliated her and destroyed their business. Behind her, Kelsey muttered something about betrayal. I let the noise run its course until the words ran out of heat. Then I spoke, calm and clear. I told them I hadn't ruined anything they had. By confusing love with labor and gratitude with silence. I wasn't their employee, their bank, or their safety net. I was their mother. And that title had been buried under entitlement long enough. Cole looked at me as if he didn't recognize the woman in front of him. Maybe he didn't. When I finally closed the door, I did it gently. No anger. No noise, just a single lock clicking into place. The sound felt like punctuation. By February, the aftermath had settled like dust after a storm thick. Visible and impossible to ignore. Cole couldn't meet the payment deadline. Within weeks, Iron District lost its primary investor, and the gym equipment was listed for liquidation. The empire he'd built on borrowed faith and my silent labor finally caved in on itself. The lien wasn't vengeance. It was a mirror. Tessa's world crumbled faster. Brands got ties. Citing contractual integrity, the affair leaked through industry whispers. And Parker Voss's suspension became a quiet scandal in local news. Her studio lease was terminated. Her following fractured overnight. Kelsey tried to spin a sympathy post online, but it backfired. The comments full of receipts and disbelief. For the first time, no one bought their story. I watched it all unfold without a word. Sitting in the same kitchen where I'd once balanced their accounts. Every fall has its silence before the thud. And this one lasted months. I didn't gloat. I didn't reach out. I simply closed the last file on my laptop, renamed it Paid in Full, and archived it. They thought they could bury me under gratitude and duty. Instead, they dug their own graves, one transaction at a time. In the end, justice didn't scream. It simply balanced the books. Spring arrived quietly, the way peace does after it's earned. I moved back to Austin, into a smaller house with wide windows and silence I didn't have to fight for. Work came easily again. I started teaching a workshop for women about financial boundaries, how to separate love from obligation, how to see the numbers before the promises. It felt like breathing clean air. One afternoon, Cole came to the office unannounced. He looked older, humbled, his voice softer than I remembered. He said he'd found another job and was paying back the loan. Every cent. But more than that, he said. He finally understood what I'd been trying to teach him, how care without respect becomes control. I nodded. Not out of pride, but relief. Some lessons are meant to last a lifetime. That night, I sat on Lucia's porch again, watching the desert fold into dusk. The wind was steady, the sky endless. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for a call, an apology, or an invitation. Justice hadn't come from revenge or courtrooms. It had come from a woman remembering her worth and defending it. And in that quiet, I realized I hadn't lost a family. I'd simply reclaimed myself. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it struck a chord or reminded you of your own battles, share your thoughts below. Your voice matters here. Don't forget to subscribe for more true-to-life stories of justice, strength, and redemption. Until next time, take care of your peace.